Hello, everyone, and welcome to this radcast of the Social Club at the End of This World. I'm Jamin Shively, here with my Queen Melianor, and very happy to be joined by Adam, Fred, and Miles. We're going to start with personal updates. We'll go Adam, then Fred, then Jamin, and then anyone else who wants to jump in with personal updates after that. Just a quick comment that this platform of YouTube Hangouts is going away on August 1st, so we need to find a new platform. Any volunteers to help choose that new platform or give input on that would be much appreciated. I guess I'm kind of thinking in terms of Zoom. Skype is another option. And I don't really know what other options would be out there that we might want to consider, but I think between Zoom and Skype, we've got a couple good options to explore. So happy to hear anyone's input on that. Okay, so let's proceed with personal updates, and then we'll get to the agenda, building off of what the homework that we assigned last week. So, Adam, take it away.
Oh, hi, everybody. Well, I'm looking at, I should have my new website, worldwithoutmoney.org, online by the third week of August. So I've been working on that pretty diligently, and it is coming along. So look forward to that. And I do have a question about Skype and Zoom for you, Jamin, when you get time.
All right, thanks, Adam. Yeah, happy to delve into that. Maybe we can explore platform options maybe on next session. That'll give us some time to kind of do a little digging into it, and you and I can maybe chat offline about it, because right now we're kind of groping in the dark until we've researched it a little bit. So next up for personal updates is Fred. Take it away, Fred.
Well, I already did the personal business, so that's not really of any interest to anybody outside of our group. But I just wanted to reiterate that the New York Times has a climate section that they report on what's going on around. And it's very interesting and informative, and I do send the articles to you, Jamin. But anybody else who wants to get them, just email me or text me, and I'll send them out to you. I'll put you on my thread. That's it for me.
Awesome, thanks, Fred. Okay, anyone else want to give a personal update? And welcome, Uncle Frank. We're broadcasting and recording. Hey, Uncle Frank. And anyone else want to give a personal update before I give my personal update? Just jump in if you do. If not, that's okay. Never any pressure to speak here on the Social Club. Okay, so my personal update is I took the homework that we assigned at the end of this session last Thursday. I took that homework very seriously and have been working away on that, and have sketched up a number of concepts. So I'm looking forward to getting to that first big agenda item, and sharing, what is the plan that I propose for getting us out of this predicament step by step, that we can actually start now. That's the key, right? So, an example of a plan that would not be valid for that. Well, I'll get to that after I'm done with personal updates. And aside from that, I'm kind of, getting more and more into this state that, I've known mentally that this is really happening since late 2016, this abrupt climate change bump in the road, to put it almost sarcastically. But it's really coming home to roost for me that this is really, really, really happening really fast and really, really now. It's not like something that it's going to happen in 10 years or something. I mean, it's really happening now, and it's accelerating, and all the indications are that it will continue to accelerate. So, and I'm noticing a few things around that. One is my kind of, in a way, lack of reaction in terms of totally changing my life. I'm just kind of surprised by how I'm basically going on with business as usual in so many ways. And I have some thoughts on that. One is that we don't really know how to respond to our world falling apart. We know how to respond to local crises, a family crisis, a neighborhood crisis, a fire, an auto accident. We know how to respond to those crises, but our world falling apart, you know, not only do we not have experience of that in our lifetimes, we don't have any experience of that in you know, recent history of the past several generations, right? It's really, you know, tens of millions of years ago or whatever that we've had, you know, big, well, not about tens of millions, but, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago that we had anything like an ice age or anything like that. And then, of course, we bounced out of that. But in terms of this overheating, you know, we just don't have any experience with that. So we just don't really know how to deal with it. So I'm just kind of grappling with that, both coming to terms and realization, and then, you know, what do we do? And so in terms of the what do we do, we'll get to that when we dig into the first agenda item, which is the big one for today, which is what are people's proposed plans. Miles is up next, and then I say after Miles, we just jump right into the agenda. And so just put yourself in the queue if you want to jump in with your proposed plan. I'm going to ask people to be concise at first, relatively concise, like 5 minutes or so that we can get our proposed plans out there at a high level. And then if we want to dig into more details after everyone has had a chance to share, then we can do that. Does that sound good? Yep. Okay. All right. Miles is up next, followed by Adam. And I'll put myself in the queue, followed by Jamin. So take it away, Miles.
Okay. Thank you, Jamin. And hello, everybody. Calling in from Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm on Treaty 7 of the Niitsitapi people, or you would know them as the Blackfoot in Canada or the Blackfeet in Montana. And respectfully acknowledge my presence here as a settler. My grandparents were born in Europe, Eastern Europe, came over in 1908. So relatively speaking, my tie to the land is only a little over 100 years old as far as my ancestry is concerned. Whereas the Blackfeet people, Blackfoot, Niitsitapi, they've been here for tens of thousands of years. And that's an important recognition for everybody to make. So I'll get into that because I can't seem to separate my need to reconcile with First Nations before I can even consider that we'll be able to handle the climate emergency. So I'm in Canada, and there was a national declaration for a national climate emergency, I believe it's called. However, you know, you would think that if a nation called something an emergency, there'd be people having meetings and scurrying around, doing things, taking actions, getting preparations and such. But really, it's crickets as far as I can see at this time. No, you know, I'm not diminishing that there are people that are doing great work, but you know, there's not a mobilization happening. There's not even talk of any kind of a mobilization. But anyway, I wanted just to comment about your feeling of guilt, Jamin, that, you know, you're thinking about reflecting on your own actions and thinking how inadequate they are, and how you're personally questioning, well, what's with me? How come I'm not reacting more? And I feel the same way, you know, because, you know, just the other day, my neighbor is out squirting weeds with Roundup, you know, glyphosate, and used a little too much. Now there's these dead patches and such. And, you know, was I supposed to go and confront her to tell her, you know, what the hell are you doing? But I'm not there yet, you know, but I should be. I should get there. And, you know, when I say, well, there's nobody having meetings or making preparations, you know, that's basically indicting myself. So we somehow have to actually start to rattle everybody's cages, including our own. You know, for example, I'm still weekly getting my gas-powered, gas-sucking, gasoline-sucking lawnmower out to mow the lawn, whereas I should actually just be letting it grow. You know, it's sequestering carbon, and why should I be interfering with that process? And, you know, thinking of how we cut the grass clippings and using gasoline and oil, and then we put it into a bin, and a big truck has to come down the street to pick this stuff up, and then takes it to a composting. At least they're composting it. But anyway, that's the biggest issue, is actually breaking out of the mold that we're all confined in, the indoctrination that we are all repressed by, and starting to say, okay, you know, we got to let things go wild. We've got to start creating the edible forests. We got to start taking down fences. And, you know, if I own a little lot of land, I need to have my fence removed so that it could be better productive to grow local food. And so you had said there, Jamin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Miles. Good stuff. All right. Adam is up next, and I encourage us all to shift into the agenda topic of what is our proposal that we can start right now as the social club, or that we can start as individuals, but a proposed plan for radical transformation. And let's be concise at first. I'll kind of do the timer thing, and love to hear everyone's thoughts. Adam is up next on the queue, followed by Jamin, followed by Melissa, followed by Miles. Take it away, Adam.
Okay, well, I'll just do a quick screen share here. And I've thought about this too. Okay. So I wrote up a little deal just thinking about this. So these are your instructions on your email that we could do on a social club. And it said, let me see, homework for next social club, please draft a step-by-step proposed plan for action for getting out of our crisis, starting with the actionable steps we on the social club can take. And then I thought about maybe we could focus on different topics, maybe do a trial run for how a team would analyze a topic, or analyze the feasibility of your CCC corporations or the community kitchen, or maybe analyze how RCI would work with the world, in a world without money. And then I had this kind of profound thought here that I actually put in my, I'm going to have it in one of my videos in the Road Life Plan. But so if corporations rule the world and corporations make all decisions based on money, then money takes precedence over nature and over human life. Is this what is happening? Here are some examples we might want to think about. Monsanto, Roundup, nuclear power, military industrial complex, weapons, assault weapons for sale. And then I thought, there are many new technologies today. Corporations can afford laboratories with chemists and scientists of all kinds. Much like a fruit on a tree, these technologies hang down, just waiting to be picked. One might call this the tree of knowledge. Are all the fruits benign? If not, then which fruits are poison? If our government has been taken over by corporations through lobbying and such, and don't protect life from corporate decisions, then what happens to life? And then I wrote also, we could brainstorm a step action plan to get humanity out of the crisis. And then I wrote your Radish, what you're trying to do there on Radish, took it off your website. Said Radish is a collaborative initiative to develop an AI-driven collective intelligence platform to generate solutions to the major problems humanity is facing due to global warming and other systemic challenges. Our initial goal is to prototype a system to draw upon the best ideas and resources using synergetic processes for solution design and implementation at a global scale. And that means need to know. So that's where I was and coming from. And that's all I have to say right now. Thanks. Let's see, I'll take myself off screen sharing here. And
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
All right. Next up in the queue is Jamin, followed by Melissa, followed by Miles. And feel free to put yourself in the queue if you'd like to jump in. So here is my proposed set of actions. One is that we as the social club begin to discuss the topic of the world that we want. What is the world? And Adam, you may want to mute. What is the world we want? And at first talk about this in kind of high level terms, just descriptively, what is the world we want? And where we can then go from there is to have, and where this is based on is this idea that we can ultimately, as humanity, starting with this small nucleus and this high level discussion of what is the world that we want, as we expand the discussion and bring more people in and start to get a clearer picture of the world we want, we can from there, as sort of a nucleus of this world we want, this simplified image of a world we want, expand from there and actually begin to take on the challenge of how do we collectively design within the world we want human culture, a new culture for humanity, a new story for humanity. Who are we? Why are we here? Where are we going? Where do we want to go? A whole new set of living arrangements. And this is all designed, as Adam says, in virtual reality, on paper, so to speak. Design what set of living arrangements would work and be part of and consistent with this world that we want. A whole new economy, not based on rampant overconsumption, but on meeting the basic human needs of all of humanity and protecting and healing Mother Earth and fulfilling more generally on the world that we want through our economy. And then finally, what is the game that we want to be embracing and playing? Like right now, when most people get up out of bed in the morning, whether they're conscious of it or not, they're playing the game of hoarding, right? That's the game that we've been born into captivity, as Guy McPherson says. So if that game is not working out for us, and it's clearly not because it's omnicidal, what game do we want to be playing? And so then, and then from there we can so once we have this clear view of the world we want, and then we start to grapple with how would that actually be implemented in terms of culture, story, set of living arrangements, economy, and game, then we can start to flesh out a plan from there using collective intelligence to now. But this is all big picture. So how do we start? Well, I say we start with discussing what is the world that we want. Not here on the program today, but this is my proposed kind of first step, is that we have a discussion about the world that we want. And in terms of implementing it in the real world, I've been talking with Jamie, who is often on the social club. You may even pop in today if he's able. But we are actually planning on doing a national tour and going to cities and towns all across the country and recording and broadcasting podcast style, YouTube video style, conversations with people across the country, precisely about these topics. What is the world we want? Climate change. And if we're going to get out of climate change, what kind of solutions do we need? I'm going to be arguing, as I always have, that we need deep, radical, whole system transformation. And so what is the world that we want that we can transform to, away from the world that we have, which is omnicidal? So focus on first topic, what is the world we want? Go from there to intentionally designing a new culture, story for humanity, set of living arrangements, economy, and game. And the very first step, aside from us talking on the social club about the world we want and kind of starting to paint that picture, hitting the road and broadcasting to the world and getting more and more people into this conversation through a specific channel with a specific name and a specific identity for this platform that Jamie and I will be fleshing out. And then also Michael Call is going to be involved in that. And I invite anyone who wants to get involved so that we take this conversation from out of the relatively small confines of the social club and into this much bigger audience of the United States, Canada, and then go from there to other countries. So that's what I have to say for the moment. And now I pass the microphone to my Queen Millionaire.
Thank you, Damon.
Sure, sweetie.
So first, I would like to acknowledge the First Nations people whose land we are occupying. And I want to say Hawa to the Lummi tribe, the Tulalip tribe, and all the Coast Salish tribes for letting us stay here. And I just wanted to come back to what Miles was saying, because I do actually think that what Miles was saying is part of what you're talking about and the question you asked the social club participants. And Miles is kind of what came to me when I was listening to you, is that until each and every one of us actually takes a vow to protect and defend Mother Earth, we are not going to find it easy to make those changes. And I have taken that vow by myself. Matthew Fox is the one who actually proposed to people in his Order of the Sacred Life publication book.
Order of a Sacred
Order
Earth.
of a Sacred Earth, right? That we take that vow. And I'm just thinking of the Knights of the Round Table. And they took vows and they upheld those vows and to the death. And I think that's a very serious commitment, that when you take a vow, then you can't just let your neighbor spray the lawn with Roundup. You have to say something. You are obliged to. It's your responsibility to. So are we really going to step up to the plate and defend Mother Earth? Or is it just lip service? You know, it makes us feel good. So my action this morning at the grocery store, picking up the packaged strip of bacon and actually raising the consciousness by my being courageous and talking about it, regardless of what the response is going to be around me, is my living up to the vow that I took. Same with, I cannot walk over garbage anymore. I pick it up all the time. So I do still drive a car. So we're not perfect, and we're still not completely transitioned out of the old system, and it's going to take some time. But I think that's an essential ingredient to being the change that we talk about and we want to see. So the step-by-step plan of action that Jamin has called for, I was not on Social Club last week, so I haven't really kind of focused on that. But I don't know, just personally, I have a very hard time just seeing this as a step-by-step plan of action, as if we can get ourselves out of this mess by doing that. I see this as an opportunity for helping this planet to survive the impact that human habitation has been having on it for the last, I don't know how many thousands of years now. But I also see it as a spiritual revolution and opportunity for our own souls to and beings to transform and change and grow. And I believe this is happening. So for me, just off the top of my head like that, I think the first place to start is by raising consciousness, whether that is through an action that you take and someone sees you doing that and it changes them, it transforms them, or whether it's through dialoguing, conversation, or teaching and lecturing. And then Jamin and I have been working on a proposal for a project down on the West Coast, which I believe is in mini scale addressing really what this question asks. And so our project, with your approval of this, just to talk about this a little bit very briefly, really it's a community that is split over climate change. They are facing the effects of climate change drastically, and to the point where they may have to have a managed retreat. And of course, there are people in denial who don't want this. Obviously, it's really hard to just pack up and leave your house. It's about to slide off a cliff or to be consumed by the ocean. And so there's a lot of resistance. So how do we bring people into the conversation about change, which is happening, and where there's resistance, and how do we bring people into the conversation? And so art, I believe, is one of the powerful vehicles for doing this. And so we proposed a series of art installations that are interactive that will be co-created by community members, which are really allowing the participants in the community to engage in the conversation through co-creating something. And then with a series of workshops, actually exploring things. So there will be the raising the level of consciousness through discussion. There'll be brainstorming, which is looking for solutions together. And then implementation, which is taking actionable steps, which can be very small and can be very big, like planting trees. That's a huge one. Cleaning up beaches. Stop using single-use plastic. You know, these things seem small, but I believe they're very big actionable steps that all of us can actually take right here, right now. We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for a plan for that. We can do that. So that's where I'm at with this at the moment. Thank you. Over and out.
Beautiful. Thank you, sweetie. All right. Next up in the queue is Miles, followed by Adam. Take it away, Miles.
Yeah, and I'll build upon what Melissa has said. And that is, yes, we need to raise consciousness. And again, that word means with thinking, or thinking together, thinking with witness and thinking from the heart, as I learned on a podcast by Laura London, who has a podcast called Speaking of Jung, about Carl Jung's concepts of consciousness. Now, that's essentially how I believe we can move forward, because I have to do what I believe is most highest priority for me in a local context. And you've been talking to that too. You're going to a local context in Pacifica, California. I need to operate in my local context. I should have said, oh, that's a terrible pollutant. And I should have at least raised her consciousness. Totally agree. But I also need to get down to City Hall. And I need to say, all right, we have a national climate emergency. It's really a national ecological emergency. There's a lot of things that this city has to change. And so from my community to my city to my province to my country, I have to change consciousness, and I have to do it with a groundswell of people who have also raised their consciousness, so that we can actually affect change and start mass transformation of people. So yeah, I would stop cutting my lawn today if I knew that I had the social license to do so. Because first of all, my family would say, oh, there's Dad, he's off his rocker again. And my neighbors would start having bylaw officers coming over to me and charging me for violation of city bylaws that require you to cut your lawn. So anyway, I guess that's what I just wanted to put on the table, is I see that the social club continuing to create the platform and expand the number of people participating is a great idea. Just tempering it with the fact, though, that individuals, wherever they are, will have to work in their local context to leverage major change. But we can always come back and share what we've done, here on the social club. And I've done a few things in the past week, which, sometimes I thought, well, it's a bit of a you're being a bit of a hypocrite in a way, because, for example, just yesterday ordered a holder for my iPad so that I can put it onto a tripod. And I bought it from Amazon, and I thought, but they're the only ones that actually had it that I could find, and it's super easy to buy off of Amazon. But by the same token, unless Amazon is really walking a talk of protecting Mother Earth, I shouldn't be buying from them, but I did. So, anyway, I'm constantly conflicted. There we go. I'll say something later.
All right, Adam is up next, followed by Jamin. And if you want to get in the queue, just jump in or speak up or wave your hands or whatever. All right, Adam, take it away. And Fred's up after Jamin. Take it away.
So a comment on YouTube says that that Sam Carana says that the Earth has already risen to 2 degrees, already reached the 2 degrees centigrade temperature mark as far as warming goes, and that we're heading now for the 3 degree. So whatever we're going to do seems like needs to be done. It's okay to do local things, and I'm not against that at all. But we're not really given the ability to make major changes. We're told that we have to reduce our carbon footprint, but the choices of cars we're given to buy get not much better gas mileage or fuel emissions than what we had in the 70s. So we're really up against the whole system. And like I said, corporations they are ruled by money. The real leader of a corporation is not human, it's money. So if money's ruling the world, then what happens to humans? Um, so a lot of us feel this feeling of inaction, and you know, we don't have a place to go. And I mean, humanity doesn't have any place to go and really make a contribution. And that's why I'm so much in favor of a platform for humanity. And that's what I'm trying to develop. I think that's the way we should go with the platform for humanity. I'll just stop there. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Adam. Up next is Jamin, followed by Fred, followed by Melissa. So here's what I have to say. Building off what you were saying, Adam, that you know, more fuel efficient cars, et cetera, et cetera. These are half measures at this point. We're in a state of absolute crisis, and so expanding the conversation. Jamie and I hitting the road, doing a road show, where we get out there and start making this conversation happen on a larger scale, and recording it and broadcasting it. And we've got a pretty cool name and concept for it that I'm not at liberty to share just yet. But it's basically, look, let's have the conversation. Abrupt climate change is happening. It's happening all over the world. And just because the media is not talking about it, the major media, doesn't mean that it's not happening and that it's not of extreme, unspeakable urgency. And we need to make the unspeakable speakable. We need to speak about it. And that's exactly what we're doing. And what do you think? And so, we would have chairs on the sidewalk that we'd put up it right in the heart of a downtown, city, whatever city we're at. And Jamie would be in a chair, I'd be in a chair, and then we'd have an empty chair in the middle that anyone could come and sit in, and then you're on camera and we're recording and broadcasting, and we'd turn these into maybe 1 or 2 minute YouTube videos, some of which will go viral, but it's about starting this national and soon to be international conversation where it's real people talking about this real urgency and what are we going to do about it. And the systemic issues of government denial, corporate denial, media denial. And Adam, here you hit the nail on the head. It all goes back to money. Corporations, including media corporations, are all chasing the dollar, and they all want to sell more product. And that means don't talk about the elephant in the room, which is that it's our current set of living arrangements which is causing all this, and that we need to make radical World War II style changes and shifts in resources and what we do and how we're living to really confront this. Getting the word out there, making the conversation happen, and talking and speaking the elephant in the room that we need deep, radical, whole system transformation, right? There should be a planetary emergency and mobilization to do geoshading, right? To get in front of this runaway train before it runs into the World Trade Center.
Right.
We need to barricade this thing before it just takes out all of New York City, speaking metaphorically, right? Anyway, we're going to be hitting the road. Enough kicking the can down the road, so to speak. We got to hit the road and get it out there, start publishing this, and just put the conversation in front of everyone and say, listen, the water's warm and getting warmer. Jump into the conversation. We need you here. We need the world here on this conversation. And just, walking the talk by talking the talk publicly. Anyway, and talking about what is the world we want, right? I think we need to push this conversation both on the Social Club, that topic, what is the world we want, as well as out in the world, because we keep talking, oh, we got to change this and change that and change this. But all these conversations are about essentially giving up luxuries that we've become addicted to. That's not a very compelling conversation in terms of inspiring people. If you tell me, Jamin, you can no longer have chocolate or coffee, what I'm munching on right now, whoa, I'm going to be resistant to that. So let's talk about the world that we want and create an inspiring vision that's not about less and less and less, though it'll certainly include that, but that's about, you know, humanity coming together and living together in a collective way, like an ant colony, where we're all like actually enjoying each other and happy and inspired and working together and not separate from each other and in competition with each other. That kind of, you know, conversation. So I'm really psyched to get out there and make this happen. Anyway, up next is Melissa, followed by Adam. No, I'm sorry. Fred is up next. Sorry, Fred. Fred, followed by Melissa, followed by Adam, followed by Miles. So take it away, Fred.
I just wanted to respond to something I think Adam said about trying to, or the difficulty in being not politically correct, but everything you do, being conscious and contributing to the healing of the planet or whatever. It's just, I know how exhausting that is when you're appraising every move you make. Every time you turn the water on, if you forget to turn it off for 5 seconds, that's the sort of thing that makes me crazy. And then, you know, Jamin, I totally support what you're doing, going on the road, you know, ringing the bell. And it sounds a little bit, just take it right now, and I'm not trying to be discouraging this. It sounds like the 60s where we got to live together. You know what I mean? And that was, and that went the way of the dodo. I'm just wondering, how are we going to prevent that from happening again, where, you know, it's like love. I mean, believe me, I believe in it. I believe that this is a spiritual transformation that has to take place, because otherwise people are going to get caught up in living, you know, just the mechanics of living. And to get people to, you know, all we need is love, whatever that means, you know, means being aware of other people and being compassionate and all of that is, you know, we've had utopian societies or attempts at it for forever. How do we use the sword hanging over our head to say, hey, look, this is not a utopian vision. You know, we're not, you know, going off and, you know, setting up a commune, so to speak. We are in crisis. So you know what I'm saying? I'm saying it's just like we've been there. We've used this verbiage before. Now it's real. It isn't like, you know, some pie in the sky idea. It's gotta happen. So anyway, I'm reacting to some of the stuff that was said, and you know, you're gonna go out on the road with Jamie Gilchrist. He's back in the world. Okay, that's great. You hope you're gonna start here so I can see him.
We're gonna start right in front of your house, Fred. And, yeah.
And breakfast at my house. Okay. No, we'll go to Pete's Egg Nest. Anyway, yeah. So I'm just wondering, how do we inject this with the urgency? How are you going to do that and make it not sound like, you know, you're Rip Van Winkle waking up in in the park in San Francisco 40 years later. You know what I mean? We've got to live together. Yeah. Anyway.
It's a Coca-Cola commercial, Fred. We're living the Coca-Cola commercials.
That's right. It's the real thing. Okay. All right. That's all I have to say.
Great stuff.
And guys, I have to go. It's noon. I have to go. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Come up with some great ideas. And I want to see Jamin and Melissa, who are handy, sometime soon. You guys I can't see, but anyway, thank you. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Love you,
Love
Fred.
you,
Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you next week. Take good care.
Sooner than next week.
No, you're absolutely. I was talking social club wise.
Well, we have ferry problems right now on the island, so.
Dairy problems?
Ferry
Ferry.
problem.
Ferry.
The boat that goes back and forth.
Okay. Oh, ferry problems. Okay. All right. First, then I thought you said scary problem.
Scary ferry problem.
Yeah. Anyway, goodbye.
Thanks, Fred. All right, brother. We'll see you soon.
Very scary ferries on the island.
All right. Speaking of scary ferries, next up is Melissa, followed by Adam,
Okay.
followed by
Peace and love, man.
followed by Miles. All right. Take it away, Melissa. Take it away, sweetie.
Okay, so I'm going to bounce around. I wanted to come back to Adam first, and Adam, I wanted to say that I really appreciate the little model plan that you put up for us to see, and I really like the paragraph about the tree of knowledge. I think that's a really great image, and I would love to see that as a drawing, you know, and start showing people, because I don't think we're used to thinking about things like that. You know, we're used to thinking that because it's technology and it's human invented that it's good, right? But it's not necessarily a good invention. So I think I love that. I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I want to come back to Miles about the mowing the lawns and discussing with the neighbor and all that. I think what's interesting about issues like this is that people have often started campaigns which have brought about changes in legislation and laws, etc., because of something that they work towards changing. So I think your idea of going to your local whomever's and having that conversation, you bring them into the change of awareness as well, that you can affect change that way. And I also think there are ways of doing things like talking with the neighbor, for example, where it's not you or me accosting the person, it's just having a conversation, because I think probably what your neighbor would really love to know is that that product is carcinogenic. People have actually died from it. It gets into the water table. We're drinking that water. And so it's going to affect her in a negative way as well as the environment. So I think that, you know, maybe take some literature on that to her and say, hey, I saw you're using Roundup. And by the way, did you know? And I think that person probably will stop using Roundup when they find out about the negative impacts it will have on her or his health. And probably also for yourself and your children, you don't want that product around you. So that would be my thought there. And I also wanted to say to Fred, what I find myself, he was talking about, you know, how he loves running the water. I'm going to exaggerate a bit to make a point. But I think, again, once we've taken this oath to defend and protect Mother Earth, it actually is fun to not do something we're used to doing, like letting the tap run all the time or buying single-use plastic bottles of water, because you know that you're being a positive contributor to something greater than yourself. And then I wanted to come back to what Jamin is talking about. Well, I really love your idea, Jamin, with Jamie about doing this conversations from the armchairs. But what I do believe strongly in that working with a community in California is going to be very major, because California is very much awake. They're facing erosion on their whole coast, so it's not just one town, it's actually the whole state, pretty much. And so communities are starting to communicate with other communities. So I think there's power in working with a community rather than individual to individual, although that can happen as well. And then communities connecting to other communities. And I really believe in this model community project idea. And that's where I'm putting my money.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so over now. Thank you.
Great.
And
great.
I'm going to have to leave, guys, at about 12:45. So I apologize for that. But I'm actually working on a show with a friend of mine's, co-creative. It's called Disposable Beauty, and we're working on some really awesome projects around climate change and human habitat, the impact of human habitation on Mother Earth. So that's going to be opening here first on Whidbey Island in September. So I've got to meet her today to work on that.
Awesome. Okay, that's a little over half an hour from now. So beautiful. Great stuff, everyone. Really, really enjoying digging this conversation. Up next is Adam, followed by Miles, followed by Jamin. So, and if you want to be in the queue and you don't know how, just wave your hand and I'll put you in the queue. All right, Adam, take it away.
Okay, well, I don't think there are just so many problems, and our government's obviously not set up to handle these problems, and it's coming on so fast that I don't think we can solve these. I don't think we can do anything except for if we build a platform and build a vision of what we can do what we can do when the collapse comes. Because when the collapse comes, money won't be in the way anymore. The governments won't be in the way. So we can look at that as an opportunity in a way, because it'll be the first time that we've experienced this. If we know what to do, then we can start over at that time. Right now, the only vision we have for the future is a vision of horror. So right now we know the collapse is coming, and it's a vision of horror. Well, if we start planning for what to do when the collapse comes, we replace that vision of horror with a vision of hope, real hope, because if we have a platform where we can we can put our heads together. Humanity can put our heads together, and we can use our computer technologies and stuff to come up with solutions to predicaments that we don't have solutions to. So in that world, by developing it for the future, and the way I'm presenting it is, we're making a plan for the children of the world, for a sustainable future for the children of the world. So if humanity has a place to come together on a platform and make a plan for the sustainable future for the children of the world, then we're not making the plan for ourselves. We're making the plan for the children in the future. So that kind of removes a lot of argument, because the plan is based on that. The future is complicated. That's why I say it's like building a skyscraper. Before a skyscraper is built, you have to build it in digital reality. I got away from the term virtual reality because that's kind of misleading. It's really digital reality. So we build the plan in digital reality, and then and as that plan gets filled in, all the details, then our vision becomes more complete, and we replace our vision of horror with the vision of hope. So that's the way I see it. And by the way, the ice age, last ice age we had ended around 12,000 years ago. Before that, the North America, most of the United States and Canada was heavily covered with ice. And then a comet, according to Hancock and Brian Forster and a few others, about 12,000 years ago, the Earth was hit with a meteor that wiped out a lot of the fauna that the large animals that our ancestors used to live by and hunt. And it actually we think it tilted the world by 23.5 degrees. And I find that pretty interesting myself because apparently it could have come from a pulsar wave that was originated from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. That happens every precessional cycle. I think about every 13,000 years or something like that. But that may be getting off the subject. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Good stuff. Great conversation, everyone. Next up is Miles, followed by Jamin. No one in the queue after Jamin at the moment. Take it away, Miles.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, Adam, because we should have already been equipped with this plan that you're talking about when collapse happens, because it's always been present. I think in a sense, we've been programmed not to think about collapse, because when collapse happens, then we are really faced with the existential questions of what gives life meaning and purpose. And if we're actually thinking really deeply about meaning and purpose, we would probably have taken apart the Industrial Growth Society a long time ago. But the Industrial Growth Society doesn't really want to think about our thinking, or doesn't want us thinking about meaning and purpose. It really wants us as robots, as consumers, robots who just go out and mow their lawn every week and burn fossil fuels, robots that go out and buy automobiles and pay taxes to build roads and freeways like is happening right now. Just the most ridiculous thing. $1 billion or more being spent on a freeway in this part of the city that I live in. So yeah, they've got us working as robots, not thinking about meaning and purpose. We need to get it on top of being ready for the day when the lights go out, or you go to your bank and all the computer numbers that you had in a bank account have just poof disappeared, and then what do we do, right? So totally appreciate that. And another thing to segue, talking about we do it for the children, I'm wearing a shirt, and it's, I'll just stand up here. What it has on it is 2 feathers, and it's for Orange Shirt Day, which happens in the fall. But I actually bought this shirt and several others just to support the cause. But it says for those who survived and for those who didn't. And it's 2 feathers. A big feather and several small feathers. And it is to commemorate that indeed when railroads were built across Canada and in the United States, they needed to get the First Nations people out of the way in order to expropriate their land to build railways and such. And it's literally in documents in government legislation and such, and authorities who said, yeah, we have to take the Indian children from their parents and force them into a school, cut their hair, and we'll make good, corporate citizens of them. And it literally kill the Indian and the child. So it goes on to say down here, every child matters. And it also is in French and also in a First Nations script. So yeah, we have to, that's where I'm very much about connecting with First Nations people. I'm doing that today and learning as much as possible about their ways of viewing Mother Earth. And just in little aside, why it's important to act locally is because it's respectful to learn about the territory and the people if you're a settler you're living on, because for example, they don't consider North America to be Turtle Island, the Blackfoot people. They don't call it Turtle Island. And it's not that they're against people saying we live on Turtle Island, but just remember that that's not pan-Indian. It's not embraced by all. They have their own creation stories. And so to be respectful of Mother Earth, I think we first have to be respectful of each other. If we don't get that if we can't even live in harmony with people, especially those we've abused in the past, then I don't hold any real hope for solving the environmental issues. So anyway, that's my perspective. And people might say, well, you got your priorities wrong. We got to save Mother Earth first. Well, that's where it's all right to debate and have differences of opinion. We always will, but it is nevertheless, as long as we're talking in peace, we can embrace or allow differences of opinions, and that raises levels of consciousness for everybody. And then I think ultimately we get to a truth, and I think truth is the most precious thing that we always have to be focused on. Great.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miles. All right. Up next in the queue is Jamin, followed by Adam, followed by Melissa. And so here's what Jamin has to say. So, building off of what Fred said about, how do we inject urgency into this so it's not a Rip Van Winkle thing from like the 60s, like I fell asleep in 1968, which is actually the year I was born, and then woke up now and it's like, just same old message from the 60s that we need to come together and love each other and all that. I would say that we actually start with the message of the urgency and what's actually happening right now. And echoing from the 60s, we can say, turn off your television and tune into the name of our program, which I can't mention because of privacy. And, join this conversation. This is the real conversation, real people coming together to deal with this real planetary catastrophe and urgency, and talk about both preventing total collapse by implementing such emergency measures as geoshading and talking about that. In fact, I just thought of a really cool way that we could do that. Where we're going to be sitting and, with these lawn chairs or rocking chairs or whatever, on the ground, in the downtown areas where people are passing by where we'll be filming this, as well as college campuses, as well as in front of City Hall, government buildings, etc. We'll have a canopy there so we can be in the shade, us and whoever is visiting with us. And then on top of the canopy, imagine that we have, whether it's thin steel or thick aluminum foil or something like that, but reflective material that's reflecting sunlight back into space as an example of geoshading, and also a way to catch the eye of people who are maybe a few blocks away. Whoa, what's that big silver tent, etc. So talk about preventing collapse in these very urgent terms of geoshading and of everyone going vegan and community cafes and other measures that are part of this deep radical whole system transformation that we urgently need. And then also, to Adam's point, preparing for collapse. Since it's not these emergency measures are not being implemented right now. Governments are failing us. The private sector is failing us. That subset of the private sector called media, which promotes the rest of the private sector, is failing us, right? Because we're just in this massive failure of appropriate response to this planetary catastrophe and emergency. We also need to prepare for collapse. Collapse looks like it's coming. We would love to prevent collapse from happening. And to do that, we need to jump to it and get into this emergency response mode at a planetary scale, starting with, and then point right above me to the canopy, geoshading, reflecting sunlight back into space. Why tell them about it when you can show them, right? So I think that's going to be a key part of it. And really just revving up this conversation. I'm getting more and more psyched. I mean, I'm ready to freaking just throw down, get out there and do it. Enough talk, right? I mean, enough me sitting on the couch and talking. It's time to sit in the middle of downtown with Jamie, who, as all of us know who've seen Jamie on the Social Club, and more so if you've met him in person, as Adam has and as Melissa has, Jamie is a force of nature, Hurricane Jamie. Either get out of the way or you know what? Watch out. So, and I'm a little bit of a force of nature myself. Put the two of us together, it's like vinegar and baking soda in a crack pipe, and we're just gonna, we're gonna let her rip.
I'll just jump in a quick comment.
Please.
We have Dr. Rao and his webinars to use. He's gifted his slides to anybody who wants to grab onto them. We have all these Radish programs to work with, as well, to show people over time and the ideas. And it's really just getting out and doing it, right? And it doesn't matter, if we're all going to end up cooked, well, we end up cooked. We all knew we were going to die at one point. We might as well go out actually showing that we woke up at one point, at least. Maybe it was too late, but at least we woke up. And as this shirt says, every child matters. And this shirt to me doesn't just mean, I'm thinking about the First Nations children, I am, but it also means I'm thinking of my children upstairs.
Yeah, I want to jump back in too, if I may.
Please.
And I just want to second that. That's also running through my spirit, Miles. So thank you for saying that. Is that, not one of us is going to save the planet. It's going to take everybody. And so whatever any one or more of us do that has meaning and that is helping Mother Earth and helping an animal or a person or a tree is beneficial. And maybe we have time and maybe we don't have time. But I think that, Jamin, if for you and Jamie, it's meaningful and fun to go and sit in those chairs and converse with people to bring about change in this way, then you should do it. For me, I have my way of doing it, which is through using art as the vehicle. So I I think that that's just really important. That just got to do something. And I think when we were picking up garbage in Pacifica, it really did impact the community right away. People were remarking and thanking us and asking us if they could join in or sharing about how they picked up garbage. So small things can have a very big impact on people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love this conversation, everyone. And this is just, whew, for me, this is like the launching pad for what Jamie and I are going to start ripping out across the country. So let's all rock on. Up next in the queue is Adam, followed by Melissa.
I already spoke.
Oh, you already
Sorry.
spoke. Okay, so just Adam, and then I say we just kind of riff pinball style. Let's forget about the queue. There's only 4 of us here. Is that fair? Okay, so Adam, you're up next, and then we'll just riff pinball style. Go for it, Adam.
Okay, well, I'd like to make 2 points. The first one would be about mowing lawns, and the other one would be about wisdom. So as far as local things that we could do, we have here where I live, we have this app that you can join called Nextdoor. And I think I'm going to make a post on it and suggest that we stop mowing our lawns. I mean, if everybody stopped mowing their lawns, the city couldn't do much about that, could they? And, it seems like a really effective way to draw attention. So, not everybody's going to do it, but if you saw, somebody who doesn't have their lawn mowed, you might think that, well, that person's on board. So anyway, that's one thing to think about. And then wisdom. Obviously, our government isn't run by wisdom. We're not making choices. Basically our world is run by corporations, and their decisions are made based on money. They're not made based on wisdom, which is proven by looking at the nuclear power plants and all of them that are built next to the ocean. I mean, how ridiculous! And why did they build the Columbia, the Grand Coulee Dam on the Columbia River and wipe out so many huge salmon? These are stupid decisions. They're not based on life. They're not based on wisdom. They're based on money. And so building, changing humanity, I think, is impossible. And I don't think, so if we get on a platform, though, if we have a place for people to come, we can create a vision for how to live when the collapse comes. And, Jamin says that he wants to see, us to solve this problem before the collapse comes. Well, that'd be ideal, and I would like that too. But it doesn't look like that's going to be possible. But it is possible to build a vision for how to live, how we can live after the collapse. And, a lot of people think that, after the collapse means it's over, that there's no chance. And that may be true. But humanity hasn't had a chance to try it. We haven't had a place to come together and put our heads together and make wise decisions. So if we're on a platform and we're building a vision for the future, for the sustainable future for the children of humanity, we can make wise decisions because we're not trying to change the world we live in now, which is practically impossible. We're creating a vision in digital reality of the future that can be put into place when money doesn't exist anymore. And I contend that that vision cannot be built unless it's a vision of a world without money. I mean, it's impossible to build a vision with money. I mean, imagine trying to build a vision of the future with money when nobody knows who's going to have the vision to begin with. I don't know if I just got cut off or not. I didn't. Okay.
No. We can hear you
Good.
fine, Adam.
You're good.
Rock on.
How do we build a vision of the future with money when everything everything today? Well, we can. Let me.
Well, I think if I could just chime in here, your action plan, your construction plans for the platform, you're moving forward on that. And what occurred to me is the platform that you're talking about and what Jamin's doing. Maybe we move into this, what Jamin already proposed, but let's emphasize it, that we start emphasizing, promoting those actions people have taken. So, Melissa's got her artwork done. We should show that in a video. You're going out and talking. And then we broadcast that. We document your steps of doing that and your successes and your setbacks and whatever the result is. Maybe, we would be lawns and, sequester more carbon and spend less fossil fuels.
All right, I'll jump in. I mean, here's the thing. The conversation that we're having now is really a conversation that the world should be having. We need to be having a global campfire right now, and that's why we're going to hit the road and do this. In fact, part of how this emerged was, we were talking about the community cafe as sort of a venue to get the conversation happening and get people to come together and start talking. But that community cafe would only really work. It would only really have an impact in a very local area of one single city, unless it got some media coverage. But why not take the community cafe to 100 cities, right? And, use the media, our own podcast, YouTube videos, notify the local media, When we show up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right, and a local radio station covers us, boom, suddenly you got tens of thousands of people listening and hearing the message, right? And then we keep it rolling. When we show up in Texarkana, Texas, East Texas, we'll be the biggest thing to hit Texarkana since last month's tornado, right?
Well, that's it. And we document Jamin's and Jamie's creation of a community cafe. And this is the trials and tribulations they went through, and create one in Calgary, create one in Olympia, create one and share what you learned doing it wherever you live as well. And we start showing these documentaries on actions taken. If you the first time I ever heard of the edible forest was from Dr. Rao, but then just yesterday I opened up a local magazine and they're talking about some fellow here that has been actually promoting edible forests. So, here it is. Someone's already on the concept of edible forest here in Calgary as well. But as I said, the first time I heard about it was when Dr. Rao mentioned it. So anyway, yeah, we should get out there, and how can I turn my backyard? Because that's what some people are doing, apparently, is they're actually using, is it called permaculture? I've heard that word, but I don't know much about it. But anyway, they're not mowing their lawn. They're actually creating edible backyards. So.
Yeah, that's great. I also wanted to say that this year we did not mow the grass. It went crazy, and so did the insect populations. And I talked to the neighbors as they get their mowers out, and say, hey, we didn't mow our lawn this year. This is why. And it gets them thinking. I also just wanted to say that I do believe that climate change is coming into the mainstream conversation. I just got an invitation to be part of an exhibit called The Sacred in Nature in response to climate change and honoring the world we live in. We are seeking work that depicts a reverence for all the natural world. That would not have happened last year. That's happening now. And then the other thing I just wanted to say to you, Jamin, and all of us, is I think, if one of us finds something inspiring and calls to us to do, we just have to do it and not think about the outcome, because we don't know what the outcome is. And maybe it'll be a big impact, and maybe it'll be a small impact, and maybe in one town it'll be hugely successful, in another town it won't be. But the thing is that your spirit is calling to you to do something, and here's an idea that is inspiring you and making you enthusiastic, so you might as well do it. And then here's a thought, is that you could, in different places, actually have guest speakers or guest conversationalists. So maybe if you're in San Francisco, you invite Joanna Macy or Michael Gosney, or if you're somewhere else, you invite somebody else, Vandana Shiva. There are many wonderful people on the earth doing good work to help protect this beautiful planet, and I think you can invite them to be part of the conversation with the public as well, which could just expand and bring other kinds of connections too. So guys, love you all. Thank you so much, Jamin, for hosting this. I'm off to the studio, and see you later.
Thank you so much, my queen. Great stuff today. Really great contributions, everyone. So I say we keep rocking on. You guys want to take like a 5-minute little break to get yourself a hot cup of tea, hit the bathroom, anything like that? Does that sound, what are you guys feeling? Or you just want to roll on? Just pipe up. Let me know.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably I'm ready to make just a closing comment myself, and
okay, yeah.
get on with it.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. Why don't you go ahead and do that? Make a closing comment, and then Adam and I can sort out where we go from here. Go ahead, Miles.
yeah, so I think we've come up with some really actionable items at this round table, and taking the round table locally is what's going to affect change on the ground. And if we can share the change on the ground that we make wherever we are in these conferences, these round tables, these campfire talks we're having, that'll move things forward, and there'll be less talk, more action. So thanks a lot for this, and we'll catch you next week.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miles. Really good. Great stuff, man. All right. We'll see you next week. Adam, what do you want to do? You want to take a break?
I'm good with rolling. And if you want to take a break, we can, but it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? I don't know, because I've been sitting on my butt for a couple hours, and it's always good to stretch a little bit, refill the coffee, etc. So, shall we reconvene in 5 minutes? Work for you, or would you rather 10? Huh?
Sure. No, I'm good. I'll talk to the people on the YouTube.
Oh, that would be awesome. And if you want to get any questions or comments for when we resume here, that would be awesome. And so I'll be back in 5 minutes at 11 minutes till. Okay, 6 minutes, 5 or 6. Okay, see you in a few. Thanks, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Adam and everyone, I'm back. Take your time whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I was just talking on YouTube there.
Oh, yeah, very good. As you can see, I'm here with Princess, who adopted us a few weeks ago. Yeah. Hello, Princess. Hello, sweetie. Yeah. So, any interesting comments from YouTube to share?
Well, I was talking on there and had some comments from people. People are saying that the solution that the climate change is coming on us, and some climate and denial remains very strong. And basically, what they're saying is that humanity is not going to listen. But there are enough of us that will listen, that we can make a vision on a platform. What I'm trying to say here is that it's not people. I think if we look at it as the problems are generated by a poison that we've eaten. It's like I said with the tree of knowledge, there's a lot of fruit on that tree, but they're not all benign. And one of the fruits on that tree of knowledge that we've eaten is the fruit of money, and I think it has poisoned humanity. And I think that so it's not our fault. It's not. I mean, you wouldn't blame somebody who's out of their mind and does something because they're out of their mind and from being in a virus or something. And we don't think of money as a poison because poisons are usually transferred, through some physical means, like from a spider bite or a snake bite or something like that. But a poison can be a virus or anything like that. I mean, like a virus can run through a forest and wipe out one particular type of tree, and it attacks that one particular type of tree because what makes that particular type of tree particular is its peculiarity. Well, our peculiarity as humans is our intelligence, and money attacks us through the mental channels of our intelligence. That's our peculiarity, and that's also our vulnerability. So if we create a vision on a platform, we can have a place. We can use our wisdom. We can bypass all that, the poison of money and how it affects us. And I think that what we will need a lot of money to build the platform. And I think if the elite are just like us, they just have more money. And I think that they will help. I really do. And I think that, and I'm trying to get set up so that they can donate. And if they donate, we can make this happen.
Yeah. I agree, Adam. I think the elite, the poor, the middle class, the religious, the atheists, the agnostics, the young, the old, people are waking up in droves. And just to mention a couple of relatives of mine, I don't want to tip off anyone's identity, but it's a married couple, and they literally 1 year ago, the man was just kind of relatively clueless to this whole thing, focused on other things in his personal life and whatnot. And the woman was, I just can't deal with this right now. I've got enough on my plate. I can't, what am I going to do? It was just kind of like this sort of angry, not denial of the facts, but more like acknowledging that, yes, I know stuff's going on, but I can't deal with it. So get out of my face with it, because I just can't deal with it. I've just got too much that I'm already doing. Leave me alone and go recruit someone else to solve this problem, kind of thing. Well, now both of them are now very much in the conversation, very actively in the conversation. So this is just a microcosm in my own family. At the beginning of the program, I think before we started broadcasting and recording, we were talking about the case of Southeastern Ohio that was profiled, I guess, in a New York Times article, which is actually where my whole dad's side of the family is from, and how there was all this angry denial there, and that's transformed with education. So I really think the tipping point has been reached, right? Not everyone has learned how to talk about it yet, but I think the tipping point has been reached. And I think by us going at it right now with this roadshow and these conversations in the downtown areas of cities and towns all across the country, and broadcasting it and putting it up on YouTube and podcast and all this good stuff, I really think that we have the potential to crack the dam, put a big crack in the dam, and ultimately cause it to break open, and the river of conversation to start raging. It's just been dammed up, and it needs to be liberated. The river of conversation that, yes, we are in an absolute crisis right now. And and it's not just a crisis for a few climate scientists to be talking about, in their very, academic, detached way, right? But real people to be saying, hey, we need to deal, because if we don't, we're all going to be dead fairly soon, next 5 or 10 years or so, or at least the vast majority of us will.
But we can't deal with it. I mean, there's everything we do is blocked.
Blocked?
It's blocked.
Blocked by who?
By money.
No. Look, there's a lot of things wrong with this country. Okay, I don't think anyone watching would disagree with that. But there's also a number of things that are beautifully right about this country, and one of them is freedom of speech. When I went to the Beverly Hills Police Department, which reminds me of the 1984 movie with Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop, I literally went right to the headquarters of the Beverly Hills Police Department and spoke with the sergeant on duty and said, hey, I plan on showing up on Rodeo Drive in my Darth Vader costume and my big anti-drug cartel sign, and singing and dancing and playing music and all that. And, he realized this was to take on the drug cartels, which of course are enemy number one for the police and their ability to go home at night after a long day. And he told me, your freedom of expression is protected by the Constitution. And I will talk with the sergeant on duty on the shift that you're planning on doing this, and let him know that we talked, and blah, blah, blah. He was basically giving me full support. And at the end, he shook my hand. How many police officers will reach out and shake your hand? They're not supposed to do that.
The truth is, though, I mean, if you're if you were protesting instead of doing what you're doing, and the officer didn't like what you were protesting, I mean, he could have said that you needed to have a permit. He could have said that you needed to be in a certain location that is designated for protesting. If the laws that are made today are really beyond our voting, and they can make laws that that subjugate even our freedom of speech, and they do. In fact, a lot of the things that we vote on aren't even get passed anyway, because the government just thinks it should be done, so they do it anyway. And I don't know. It seems to me like there's just so many issues that we're not successful in getting humanity, even though they're waking up. But when the collapse comes, that will be a time when humanity will not only wake up, but the force of money will be at bay, and so will the government. So if we plan for that, that may be the time when we can find our way out. If we have a plan, so we know what to do. And we can make that plan if we have a place to do it on a platform. Because humanity has no place to come together to meet in council. I mean, governments meet in council, corporations meet in council, Indian tribes meet in council, and a lot of smaller groups and stuff meet in council. But humanity as a whole doesn't have a place. So we're forced to believe whatever we want, whatever's being told to us. And we don't have any place to go.
For the media, right? For the media,
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we're essentially about to create and about to launch here in the United States anyway, is essentially a real life, in-person version of Facebook. And because we're going to be creating a new because this constitutes a new category of media that hasn't yet existed. It's by the virtue of its very newness and the fact that we're smashing the dam right when it was about to collapse anyway, right? And that's a very powerful moment. It's like that story they read to us when I was a child about the mosquito that lands on this 500-year-old oak tree right at the moment when the oak tree was about to collapse anyway, and then the mosquito takes credit for it. Right? This dam is about to burst from the massive pressure and force of all the water built up behind it. I'm talking about the dam of denial of what's happening in the world with climate change and massive drought and heat waves and tornadoes and floods and melting of ice and sea level rise and storm surges and forest fires and wildfires and everything else. That dam's about to break anyway. We get to have the privilege of swinging the sledgehammer at it right at the moment when it was going to collapse anyway and actually precipitate its collapse. So unlike the mosquito, we actually get to take credit for, basically knocking over the first domino seconds before it was going to fall over anyway. But the laws of marketing dictate that timing is everything and being first is everything. So I think we're going to be in a really awesome position in that respect. So anyway, let's keep it rolling. I mean, so basically, look. There's generally two positions that we could have. We're going to get crushed by this climate change thing and it's too late. Or as we're being crushed right now, we can wake up and do something about it. So either we're going to be crushed or not. But the crushing that's happening will either overwhelm us, and then we're in a state of collapse where what you start to talk about becomes relevant, but also the loss of global dimming, very notably, becomes relevant too. And we can talk about that. So there's crushing that's happening now that's progressed to a certain point and is accelerating. there's the further crushing that would take us to collapse of civilization, and then what happens after that. But there's this middle zone that we're at the early stages of right now. Collapse hasn't happened. The crushing has happened to a very noticeable degree and is accelerating. What happens between now and collapse?
Okay.
That is what's going to make all the difference to the next, decade or several decades of history.
Well, I think what we've done in the past isn't working. And I don't think it'll work in the future either. But what we haven't done is we haven't made a platform, a place for humanity to come and meet in council. If that platform is set up in such a way that we can design a vision for the future, and like I said, it's a complicated vision. So it's like building a skyscraper. So before a skyscraper is built, it has to be built in digital reality first. It has to be designed. So you have a set of plans, and the plans are all divided into different sections. And so when the people come up with answers that'll fill in those different sections, they analyze the answers, and then the answer is, once they're satisfied with it, it fills into that particular place in the plans. As the plan set gets filled in, then we know what to do. We'll be given, those are our instructions. That becomes our guide for the future, for when the collapse comes. That's how I think. That's what I think would be our most effective way, because the more we come up with a guide or that to tell us what to do, the more people are going to look at that, because right now there's no way out. So as we fill in that plan, we develop our way out.
Yeah, I think either you're missing what I was saying, or you disagree with it so much that you're ready to step over it. I'm not trying to be confrontational here. I'm just trying to acknowledge what I think is happening. So, yes, we can talk about and plan for and prepare for what do we do post-collapse. And that's a totally valid conversation. I'm not invalidating that at all. You with me? Okay? Mm-hmm. Totally valid conversation. I'm just saying the much more immediate conversation that I think is also worthy of having is the conversation of what do we do pre-collapse, in addition to our post-collapse planning, right?
Well, that would be part of it. I mean, a lot of preparing for the collapse. We're making this vision tells us what to do when the collapse comes. It also tells us what we have to do to prepare for the collapse. Like we have to prepare for how to grow food when the collapse comes. So we're going to have to start collecting the equipment that we need to grow that food. So that'll have to be done now. And that's something that we can do. But if you're trying to change the direction of the oil companies and stuff, or the direction of money, I don't know if that's going to be successful or not. I mean, you can go ahead and try, but we've already tried, and I think our efforts should be put towards making a vision mostly, and because people can sit in there and go to work, and they can come home, and in their evening hours, they can get on the internet and they can get on the platform and they can start helping to build this vision. And everybody can contribute and put in their own ideas. And then there'll be a model built that'll test all those ideas, and topic teams that are formed out of the people who are sitting at their homes at their computers And then they come together on the internet, and we're talking thousands and millions of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people,
it-
that's
you know,
enough.
That's definitely feasible. Anyway, whatever is going to happen in terms of people coming together, I think we've got a huge potential right now to kickstart it with this national tour.
Yeah.
And bringing this kind of shaded awning, you know, as a place to create this rolling forum. And I really think that's something that the country has lost. I think, you know, we used to have a culture where people would get together and talk in public. It started with the campfire,
Mhm.
and it never really stopped until all this wave of modern technology and social media and cell phones kind of put the kibosh on it in the last 20 years, right?
Right.
So, you know, really, it's been a gradual evolution of over the last 50 years with television and just the change in culture. But I mean, I remember even in the 80s, people would get together and talk and have pretty public conversations, whether at cafes or bars or parks or wherever. You know, we were still talking with each other. We've kind of stopped talking to each other, except through prescribed channels such as Facebook posts and Twitter and stuff like that. So I really think this is going to be such a breath of fresh air. And because it'll be broadcast over the internet, people around the world will be able to watch what these Americans are talking about, right? And yes, you know, what to do post-collapse is a very interesting topic. Hey, collapse might be coming. Let's prepare for it. That's great. But I think what's going to be a lot more compelling to people right now is how do we prevent collapse from happening? How do we cool the planet? How do we stop this seemingly runaway train called catastrophic climate change? Right?
Collapse can come from, you know, it could come from the economy, or it can come from the environment.
Yeah.
So if it comes from the economy collapsing, then we're not dealing with an environmental collapse, and an economic collapse. If we have a vision for what to do when that happens, then we'll know what to do, and we can overcome. It'll tell us what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. You know, collapse can come from many forms, but one of the things I'm suggesting is it's not necessarily going to be everyone's favorite topic. Hey, collapse is coming. The sky is falling. You know, yeah, there's a few bold, brave people like yourself who fully embrace that, right? But I think a lot more people are going to be interested in talking about how do we prevent collapse. I still think the majority are going to be interested in not talking about either of those topics, just because collapse is a little bit too much for them to even, you know, contemplate, right?
Well, how do we make? I mean, I mean, I'm not against what you're doing, but trying to change things in the present, it's complicated. It's really complicated. So I mean, and we're really ruled by, you know, I mean, corporations rule the world. That's what they say, right? And it's probably true. So then what really rules corporations?
Money.
Right. So what's really ruling the world?
Money and greed at the moment.
Money's just if money's a poison like it, then greed's just a symptom.
That's an interesting point. That's a really interesting point, Adam, because I was kind of assuming that, you know, that greed was kind of the core problem, but you're saying it's this poison called money. I just need to contemplate that for a moment. I mean, like when the pharaohs ruled Egypt and were these kind of human kings, these human gods who controlled, the lives of, tens of thousands of Egyptians. Did they have a money system, or were they just enslaving everyone and everyone was just, just accepted their enslavement? Or was there a money system that was,
there were a few civilizations that rose up and fell along the way, and Brian Forster talks about them. That like if you go to Pumapunku or whatever those places in Peru, you'll see the megalithic structures that are made out of big, huge, giant stones. And we see them all over the world in different places. And those are indicative of a culture that lived on the earth many years ago. And we're thinking that those civilizations were wiped out probably when that comet hit in about 12,000 years ago. So we don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I think the Egyptians had some kind of monetary means, but like the great pyramid of Egypt, the big one there, that was, I think that was built before 5,000 years ago. It's not part of I don't think the Egyptians that we think of built that. I'm not a good one to declare that, but I think the research that I've done leads me to believe that.
Okay. Well, anyway, whether it's the illusion of money, because money is this collective illusion or delusion that we buy into, but the illusion is real enough that it's a real poison with real impacts, or the collective illusion of ownership of property, including ownership of other human beings as a form of property. Put all that into a giant basket. That's the poison, right? Ownership, money, right? Versus, the cultures that thrived before this money-based culture of totalitarian agriculture and greed and ownership of land and all these terrible things. We were living in harmony with nature. We weren't trying to own nature. And so that's really, an example of the kind of mental state and spiritual state we need to get back to. And until we get back to it in some way or another, some modern way, I'm not saying get back to that way of living, because that's not practical with 7.5 billion people on the earth. But getting back to that more spiritual state where we're not poisoned by money and we're not poisoned by this illusion of ownership and domination of other people and of nature. However we get back to that in our own,
Well, you say, however, we're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
Well, it's complicated, right?
Very much so.
It's like building a skyscraper.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is we have to have a vision of how to get back to that and what that is, so we can build a vision of it if we have a place to build it together. And that's why the platform is so important. Right now, all of our decisions, the decisions that guide humanity, are made by money. They're made for money and by money. And that if money is a poison to humanity, then, which it is, because it causes us to do all these crazy things. It causes us to foul our own nest. So if we can have a place to build it, to build a vision of how to live without it, then we can, as the collapse gets nearer, if everybody joins together and wants this new way of life to exist, then it could happen before the collapse happens.
Yeah.
I realize that it seems like pie in the sky, and I'm not very good at putting it out there as far as the whole idea goes. But we don't have a way of, in order to survive the future, we need to make wise decisions. And in the world we live in now, we can't make wise decisions because we're always trumped by the needs of money. Corporations rule the world, and they make their decisions based on money. Well, money, those decisions are always going to be trump wisdom. I mean, why do we have nuclear power plants built built at all? They were built because somebody was making a lot of money off of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
General Electric, Westinghouse, they made lots and lots of money.
Right. And the whole, when in 1750, which is the year that they say that basically marks the Industrial Revolution, the population of humanity really skyrocketed. It was like 770 million worldwide population in 1750. Now it's 7.7 billion. So in just 270 years, our population has increased 10 times. So that's an awful lot of technology that has come on, and we've made all of our decisions about this technology based on money. And all those decisions based on, or not all of them, but a lot of those decisions weren't right.
Yeah, no. The vast majority were just catastrophic. I mean, we got born into this game of hoarding, which in itself is just completely omnicidal, and money just became this lubricant of the game that enabled the game to just accelerate. Which came first, the poison of money, or the dysfunction, or the sociological dysfunction of hoarding? I don't know.
Well, I do.
Which did come first? You froze up, Adam. You froze up. Adam, are you there? Okay, you're back, Adam. Go ahead.
I don't know what happened, but
yeah, that's right. Carry on. You said I do.
Well, I know. You have to look at our technology today has done a lot of good. And
okay, wait. You didn't answer the question, though. You said you do have the answer to the question. It's a simple answer. It'll take 5 seconds. Which came first? The sociological dysfunction, malaise of hoarding, or money? Which came first?
Um, I would say they both came at the same time, kind of. It was money. Money is the
Actually, I just figured it out. Here's my. I'm sorry for may I barge in for a moment.
sure.
Okay, here's what I think happened. We started building a civilization based on grain, growing and storing grain at scale, to paraphrase Guy McPherson, and that stored grain became the de facto currency. That was our first form of money. Think about it, right? What had value? You know, clay pots that'll break tomorrow afternoon, or grain, which keeps you alive, and with which you can support armies, because they don't have to hunt or gather. You got all this hoarded grain. Now you got an army that you can supply and feed. Go ahead, screen share, Adam. I know you want to share.
I want to share something here. Okay. Yeah, we'll go to right here. I want to show you something. Okay. So here's a population chart I took off of a known site. The next one I'm going to show you is one I made. But this is a logarithmic scale in the vertical, and this is how many people are on the Earth. This is this is the time. So this starts 10,000 years BC, which is actually 12,000 years ago. And this was the early agricultural age, which at this time there was when humanity, or when Columbus hit came over to America. There were about 60 million people in America, in that area of the world. But what I'm trying to say is, before about 5,000 years ago, the population of humanity on the Earth was roughly 10 million or less. And now I'm going to go to the population graph that I made, which is really crude, but it shows that our modern species, or what we found out today with our modern technology, is that our Homo sapiens species, people like us, began about 315,000 years ago. So for all this time, we live on the Earth up until about that 7,000 years ago. We live on this Earth with less than 10 million people as hunter-gatherers. So then something happens, and all of a sudden, our population just grows like crazy. Well, actually, what happens is, about 5,000 years ago, our population starts to grow. But when we started taking oil and stuff out of the ground like 250 years ago, or 70 years ago, in the Industrial Revolution, then our population really started going up. So when humanity reached this point, there was a big change that happened. Before this, we were hunter-gatherers. After this, we changed. We went from the life of hunter-gathering to planting and herding. There was a big change when that happened. Before that, we lived in the relationship with life, where life adapts to nature. Now, if you think about it, all life adapts to nature. Now, when we started planting and herding, though, we were making nature adapt to us. And that set us into Well, the first thing that happened was population growth. When population growth happens, then all of a sudden competition grows. And when competition grows, fierceness grows. And when we're herding animals, our relationship between the animals, it changes. So we go from a life where we're hunter-gatherers, we respect our animals, we live with large animals. We live, we're the most intelligent animal. And we have respect for life, and we live in the same relationship that all nature lives with life. And we don't have odd things about us. We've lived this way for 300,000 years. And then all of a sudden we change, and a difference comes over us, and this is what happens. And we become fierce, and we take on these. Well, the first thing that's indicative of us when we changed, the first oddball characteristic that we developed was we saw nakedness. No other creature on earth sees nakedness. So, and we didn't see it until we changed from hunter-gatherer to being planters and herders. So that once we started planting and herding, then competition and our populations grew, and animals actually became the first form of money, because we're the only creature on the earth. I mean, we developed these weird concepts like nakedness. Like, we're the only creature on the earth that has the concept of money, using money. We didn't do that before 7,000 years ago. So these people that lived before 7,000 years ago, they had wisdom. And we've lost that wisdom. We don't know how to live on the earth anymore. That's why the earth's rejecting us. Does that all make sense?
That makes really good sense, Adam. I think you've really got a really nice grasp of it. Yeah.
So I'll try to come off screen sharing now, but so in order to get out of this, I think we need to be able to think outside of the box and get ourselves in a situation where money doesn't affect the way we think, and so we can make decisions. Now, the system we're living in now doesn't allow us to make any decisions that are not based on money, because we can make decisions, but if they go against the flow of money, they'll be trumped. But we can make decisions in digital reality, as long as they don't go into reality. If they don't, we can make those decisions by creating the vision. Then when the vision gets complete enough, people will look at it and say, well, this is our vision for life. If they take a good look at it, they'll say, this is a better way to go than what we have. And if enough people see that, then we could possibly transition before the collapse comes. But building the vision in digital reality is something that we need to kind of do without affecting the real world, because we just want to stay, as incognito as possible, just not affect the real world. Because if you affect the real world won't want the vision to be built, because the real world that we live in is controlled by money. And if money sees something that could possibly end its use, it'll discredit that or remove that potential enemy. Well, we don't want to be a potential enemy. And I think that the platform can be built, because I do think that the elite will help. And that is critical. Because the elite are just like us.
Yeah, no, I agree that the elite can play a key role because they control so many resources. And as soon as it becomes popular and sexy for them to essentially cross the line and really get into the conversation, I think you'll get a whole segment of them tipping into that direction.
Do they control money, or does money control them?
It's a two-way street. They think that they control money, but really they're the biggest heroin addicts on the planet, where their flavor of heroin is money. So they're deeply addicted.
Well, yeah. I mean, Elvis Presley was pretty rich, but he had to rent a whole bowling alley to do anything after a concert, because he couldn't go out in public. I mean, so his wealth and fame was actually kind of working against him.
What would he do in the bowling alley?
He had to rent a whole bowling alley in order to have fun after a concert. I mean, he couldn't go out in public.
Okay, yeah, because he'd just be swarmed by too many people and et cetera.
Yeah, and the wealthy are kind of the same way. We say they control us, but really they don't control us. It's really money that controls us. I mean, if you say they control us, then you're blaming them because everything's fallen apart. But they make their decisions based on money, because that's what they think is right. And so, I mean, there's a lot of thoughts going behind those decisions. There's a lot of people in a corporation. So, but the decisions of a corporation, the real leader of a corporation is money. Because, I mean, it's not the CEO or the board of directors, because all their decisions are based on the stocks and the stockholders. And most, those stockholders are people like you and me. And most of our stocks, the stocks we own them through mutual funds that we don't even really know what corporations usually that are even, that our money's even supporting.
Yeah.
So all we care about is whether the stock goes up or down. And so that the decisions made by a corporation depend on that. They're made on whether the money, if the CEO doesn't make money, he's fired, the CEO is fired, and one that will do whatever is required to make the money will be hired. And so then there's most CEOs out there are just people who are pushing pencils and buttons and know how to make things work like that. They're just good at the money manipulation.
Yeah. Hmm. Wow. All right. Well, I'm ready to take a break, or I mean, wrap up, because I think we've reached kind of an asymptotic equilibrium. Not that there isn't more to discuss, but I think we've covered pretty much the key stuff today, and I need to get off on some other things, including making plans for the journey, the national tour, soon to become an international tour. Because all of this is going to crucially depend upon a critical mass of humanity going from its recently awakened state. It's waking up to the climate crisis, but nobody's got a plan. In fact, somewhere around here, we've got this newspaper article. Oh, here it is, this little clipping here. I'll put it up on the screen here. It's our governor, Jay Inslee, governor of the state of Washington. And it shows him on a horse. It says, "Stop global warming," right? Can you see that okay, Adam?
Yeah.
And look at what the people are saying, the reporters. Really? You're going to save the planet? And he's like, yeah. Well, nobody else is doing it. But look at the eye of the horse.
Yeah.
Even the horse doesn't believe him.
Right.
Right. It's, it's just like a joke that government is going to do something about this. So, I think, so no one has any faith in any individual, institution, government of any kind to handle this. And so out of this frustration, what do you do when you're totally frustrated and perplexed and bewildered and you ain't got an answer and nobody's got an answer? You go to the campfire and you start freaking talking about it.
Right.
Like a Geico ad. It's what you do. Right?
You meet in council.
You meet and you talk about it and you say, what the hell are we going to do? Right?
Right.
So I think that's why this is going to be so appealing, what we're putting together. Is it's going to, create this global campfire.
Well, I think it'll draw attention to it, but I think the global campfire is the platform.
Yeah.
Which I call the CHIP, the Collective Human Intelligence Platform.
Yeah.
So everybody goes there. That's the place where we come to meet in council.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it can't have any money. It can't have any advertising on it. It's fully supported by its membership. And humanity doesn't have a place to go and talk. And here we can use our technology and create a place where we can talk face to face to people all over the world without a language barrier.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. So I could sit there and work on a team with a few other people and work on one of the details and talk to people in China or wherever and with another foreign language, and we can communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can both do our own search engines and figure things out, and come up with ideas, and then we'll have a model. And those ideas can be tested in the model to see if they work. And the contingency of the model is that what we're building is it's just like building a skyscraper. You have a plan set. On the front page of that plan set is an artist's rendering of the completed skyscraper. That's the vision they're building. So the plan set that we're building, as it becomes complete, it becomes a vision for the future. That's how we get out of it.
All right, lot to digest, a lot to plan, and Jamie and I need to get ready to hit the road, I believe. And get this party started, and you'll be so welcome to join us in person, virtually. It's time to get it on.
Right on.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you, Adam. And thanks everyone for watching and commenting, and thanks to Miles and my Uncle Frank and Melissa and Fred for joining earlier. And we'll be on next week, next Tuesday, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, for the Social Club at the End of This World.
Hi, everybody.
Great to see you, Adam, brother. Great stuff, man. Hey, thanks a lot for all that you've written up and the screen shares and everything. Really, really appreciate your beautiful participation.
Thank you.
Rock on, brother. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
All right. Have a great day. See you soon. Thanks.